Hey friends, Steven here. I've got another follow-up episode for you today. And for those of you who are new to the podcast or new to follow-ups, these are bonus episodes that I put out for patrons who support the show at patreon.com/thenuggetclimbing. There's a link right there in your podcast app if you want to learn more. My follow-up today is with Jonathan Siegrist. This is actually his fourth time on the podcast. I put the list of other episodes he's been on right there in the episode description for this short teaser. I'm going to give you about 20 to 25 minutes of our conversation for free right here in this teaser. And the full thing, it's basically a full-length episode with Jonathan, an hour and 32 minutes. That's available right now for patrons. So you can go to patreon.com and sign up and listen to the full episode right now. But yeah, this is my fourth time having Jonathan on the show. It's always so much fun to talk to this guy. He's so easy to talk to. He's so thoughtful about everything he does when it comes to his sport climbing, projecting, red pointing, training, etc. I mean, this guy is the best sport climber in America and definitely one of the best sport climbers in the world. He's got the resume to prove it. And he's on fire this year. He's 36 years old. He's having the best year of his life as far as climbing goes and sending hard things. And it was super cool to catch up with him and compare what we talked about 2 years ago to what his approach looks like today. We talked about some of his training and how that has evolved. He's doing a lot of training on his home wall, just doing hard boulder problems on the home wall these days. We talked about his philosophy with that. We talked about the 50-50 rule that he likes to have for projecting versus trying to send things that he can do quickly. We talked about how to train for really sustained sport climbing, where there's long crux sections of 20 to 30 hard moves in a row. That was super helpful. That's something I really struggle with, and he had some really great ideas for how I could train that and for how others can train for that if they struggle with that sort of thing. We also talked about the Fins project, which is his 515B at least project at the Fins in Idaho, how he's thinking about that and whether or not that's something that still feels important to him. We talked about the potential for trying to climb 515C and his plans to move to France and so much more. This is just one of those conversations where I'm just reminded how much there is to learn from people like Jonathan. You know, there's a reason why when someone starts dating a really strong climber or starts hanging out with really strong climbers, they just seem to shoot through the grades. It's because a guy like Jonathan has so many little nuggets of wisdom and experience to pass on and to share. And as many conversations as I've had on the podcast and as much of that as I feel like I've already learned, I'm always shocked. There's always more to learn. And there was a ton of great nuggets and super helpful stuff in this conversation for me personally. So that's what you can expect from the full episode. Again, the full version's an hour 32. I'm going to give you about a third of that, maybe a little less in this free teaser so you can get a feel for it. And if you want to listen to the full thing, you can sign up for Patreon right now at patreon.com/thenuggetclimbing. There's a link right there in your podcast app. The final thing I'll mention is that if you do sign up for Patreon, you're getting tons of value for $5 a month. And it's an amazing way to support the show. That's what keeps me going and allows me to keep putting out all these episodes every Monday. But yeah, you'll get access to all the follow-ups. You'll get ad-free episodes, so you don't have to skip the ads anymore in the Monday episodes. And you'll also get a URL that you can plug into your podcast app, and you can subscribe to the patron version of the Nugget Climbing Podcast. This is ad-free episodes and all of the follow-ups all in one place, and you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts just like the regular show, but you can subscribe to the patron version of the podcast. There's even a different logo, which looks super cool. So yeah, I encourage you to check out Patreon to learn more, and in the meantime, I hope you enjoy this free teaser of my latest follow-up with Jonathan Siegrist. Yeah, you can raise it or lower it a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I'm sure it's probably doesn't even matter where it is.
Just have it closer to you, like right on the edge of the table.
Oh, okay.
If that works.
You think it's... Wow. I mean, you're the man, but...
Yeah, if you can, like, be right up, like a fist width away.
Yeah, okay.
That's
wow.
the way. Yeah, that sounds good. Pretty simple setup.
Yeah, we'll hold it. Because then I can lean back.
Is this allowed because you're on a break from climbing right now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I have
I still laugh about that,
in
dude.
my arms.
You probably have the fittest forearms of anyone I've ever interviewed. And you're like, I can't hold this microphone.
Dude, I'm really, I think I'm anal about how much exercise I have on rest days.
You take it super seriously. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's dive right into that, actually. I'm curious. So you're on a mountain biking trip right now?
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me because it's easy for me to imagine that Jonathan just climbs like 5 days a week all year round and never stops. Is it important for you? Like, was this intentional? Like, try to take a break from climbing for a little bit, or was it more just like a fun biking opportunity? Or I guess, how do you think about like rest cycles?
Well, I mean, in this case specifically, there's a couple fellows that I grew up with, and before I started climbing, I was an avid mountain biker. I did some racing and like was just hyper into it. And they continued to ride when I got into climbing. And then I took a really long break from mountain biking. And then I ended up buying a bike probably 4 years ago or something. And loved it. I think it was just a perfect time in my life to find a complementing pursuit that I think a lot of people understand when I say this, but I wouldn't necessarily characterize climbing as fun. Like, fun wouldn't be one of the like first
that makes sense.
words that I use for climbing. I find it incredibly rewarding, and I'm passionate about it, and it's everything to me. But mountain biking is a way to be outside for me that's pure joy. At the end of the day, I'm not upset about my performance, or I don't care if I quote unquote win or lose or whatever. And so, you know, I think that in the long term, if I quit climbing and I was only riding bikes, I don't think that I would get nearly the same amount of satisfaction, like deep felt satisfaction from it. Maybe I could find a way, but that's not the role that it plays in my life. You know, it really just plays a role of like joy, like being a kid and just like not fighting gravity, actually going with it. And so, you know, this is twofold. This is me trying to entertain that side of my life, and also give myself an opportunity to catch up with these guys that I love so much that I don't get to spend that much time with, because I'm so psycho about climbing that it basically drives every trip I do, every decision I make, everything all the time. So it's nice to have a week or a couple weeks every now and then and just do something else, you know. And riding is one of the things that I can use as like a vehicle to get out of climbing.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Mm-hmm. Last time I saw you was November of 2020, I think. It's been a couple of years almost
probably
since I've seen you. And or that was a follow-up that we did. I think last time I saw you was in Lander, actually, 2 summers ago, and you had just wrecked super hard.
Totally.
On your mountain bikes.
I know. Well, shit, that's a really good segue and a good reminder, because the worst 2 injuries I've had, basically, I don't want to say ever, but maybe ever, are both from biking.
Right.
Because I mean, the style of biking that I like the most is downhill mountain biking, and I like to go fast, and it's more fun the faster you go. And it's a blessing and a curse, because I spent so much time as a kid getting good at that. It's a blessing because I don't really think that people in their mid or late 30s should start trying to downhill mountain bike like at that age, having no experience with bikes, because it's the kind of thing that, like, it just takes a certain amount of wiping out to get good at it and be confident at it. And you can do that when you're 14, no problem. But when you're fucking 36 or whatever, you don't want to do that all the time. So it's a blessing because I kind of got that out of the way and I'm decent at it. So it's fun, you know, because all these pursuits are more fun the little bit better you are, you know, like skiing, biking, running, whatever. So that's a blessing. But the curse is that it's just not fun to go slow. Like it's not fun. Like it's fun to go huge and to get speed and to open it up, you know? And so definitely have to find a happy medium there. And I think that now, especially with like how ambitious I am about my climbing over the next couple of years, I'm going to try and taper a little bit back from, I went really hard this summer that I was I crashed. I felt really confident, but I also was like going just fully like letting it go.
And
pushing it. Yeah. Definitely starting to get into that realm of like, that was sick. I think I can go a little faster. Like, I think I can go bigger, you know? And that just gets you into that, like, that gets a little scary. So, yeah, I'll find a good medium, I think. And my 2 friends that are really good friends of mine that ride, and they're great riders, they're a little more conservative than I am, probably because they're smarter because they do it all the time. And so I'll take a cue from them and not just like go
Nice.
full,
Not open
not
it
just
up
go
all the
full
way.
18-year-old.
Yeah, that's rad. It's I mean, of all the sports that friends of mine do, it seems like mountain biking is like the number one where people break collarbones, break wrists and stuff like that. Like
I know.
knock on wood. But it's I've been like scared off of it, I think.
It's so fun though.
But it's so fun.
It's so fun. And there's tons of ways to ride where you're not in putting yourself in that much danger, you know, and you don't you don't have to go huge or go fast to have fun, like especially if you're new to it. But yeah.
Nice.
It's fun.
Well, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too, man.
It's funny. I feel like I've been hanging out with you for 2 hours already this morning because I re-listened to our first episode.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Because you and I mean, that was an early one for me. It was episode 14.
The first one in Lander.
The first one that you and I did at your house in Vegas.
Okay, yeah.
That was episode 14 of the podcast, which is funny because it's like...
Wow, what are you on now?
128.
Dude, that's impressive, man.
Thanks.
How many fucking hours, of work?
A lot.
Is that?
Oh, of work. I thought you were going to say of talking. I mean, a lot of talking. But
I mean, that's
so
work,
much
and then
more, so
all
much
the
more
post,
work.
and then all the promotion, and all the. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, it's a
full-time job.
huge amount.
It's been a full-time job for 2 years, and it was definitely cringy going back and like. And I'm sure I'm my own harshest critic, but I was like something I had to learn early on was like active listening is great unless you're recording a podcast.
So what kind of listening
I was
is
like,
preferred? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I see. Like
Just-
affirmations all the
just
time.
constant, dude.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
listening to it this morning, like, God, shut up to myself.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was really fun to revisit that. And it's funny because it feels like a lifetime ago. And yet it was only two years ago. And a lot of the things that we talked about, we did a really geeky deep dive on your training. For people that haven't heard that one, I still recommend that episode because it's all totally relevant still. Like
I'm sure, yeah.
You were already climbing 515B and in crushing. And there was some like reminders in there for me listening to it this morning. Like, oh yeah, that's cool. I remember like feeling inspired by some of the things that you were doing and planning to play with them and never really getting to that. So now I'm like, ooh, that kind of gets me fired up to try some
Oh,
different
that's cool.
things.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm sure if I listened to it, I'd be like, damn, that was a good idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
those things that work that we forget to keep doing for
Oh,
some
yeah,
reason.
100%. Man,
Yeah.
we have such great ideas, and then, it's easy to get sidetracked or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for people that are newer to the podcast within the last year or so, we recorded episode 14, and then you were a guest on episode 36, which was like a fun mashup episode. It was 6 or 8 people from Climb Strong, and then you happened to be at the
Yes,
training camp
yeah.
in Lander. So that was like a 15-minute one right after your bike crash, and then we did a short follow-up in November 2020. I think you were in the Northeast, and you had just sent New World, which was your project at the 5G in Vegas.
Yeah.
And at the time, like we talked about that, and we talked about the Event Horizon project,
Yeah.
which was like the harder direct finish to this thing. And I've been so inspired by you this spring, man, because your trip to Spain was just insane. You climbed like 5 routes, 9A and harder in a month or something that you were there. It's just totally mind blowing. And then you came back and sent the Event Horizon project. So First off, congrats on a great year so far.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really psyched. Super happy. Yeah.
And I want to hear about Event Horizon because we did talk about it. You'd already done New World. And I just remember you saying like, this thing's going to be 15B at least, like for sure. And you were just, I could tell in your voice that you were like intimidated by it.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Like,
it totally was.
It's going to be nauseating,
Yeah.
How'd it go? Did you try it last year? Because that was almost 2 years ago now. Did you try it at all in the interim, or did you feel like you had to level up to come back for that thing?
I didn't try it at all in between. So New World is characterized by this like opening boulder problem that's like 5 or 6 bolts long. It's super, super continuous.
That's a long boulder problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, I say boulder problem because there's nowhere to stop and it's really aggressive.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know how many moves it is, but it's probably like 25 moves or something. So it's not like, like a normal boulder problem. It's just, I just use that term because it seems like the best way to describe it. So yeah, and in a New World, you do this really hard boulder problem, and then you kind of get a mini shake, and then you do another much easier boulder problem, and then you get a very good shake, and then you do probably like a 14A or B max. And I call that one 15A. And that took quite a bit of effort. I was also coming back from my bike injury. So in a weird way, I actually felt really good coming back from the injury because I think it floored me for a couple months, like no climbing, no distraction. And I was really on point with all of my PT. And thankfully, the people that I worked with were able to give me some really cool protocols to keep my fingers really strong throughout. I did a bunch of BFR, which
we talked about that a little bit.
Psyched on for that kind of thing. And then I remembered reaching some milestones. Even when my shoulder was still like really still healing, I was starting to do like one arm hangs and stuff, and it felt like awesome. And so it's really hard for me to know what my actual climbing condition was, but I basically went like straight into New World, and then that was a bit of a process. I want to say 5 or 6 weeks or something like that of trying really hard on that thing and training in between. So then coming back for this other thing for Event Horizon, it's basically the same opening boulder problem, but there's just less rest and the top is much harder. And I was really intimidated because I think that New World really pushed it for me, like mentally. It just is really hard for me to find good conditions. It was very dry, and my skin tends to be super dry, and the holds are like this kind of Vegas porcelain style. So things are really slippery, and so it took me a while to get the strength endurance to get through the bottom. Like the first time I got through the bottom on New World is the first time I sent the route. And that took me like a month to get through the bottom, at least. And it was kind of stressful on my relationship because I was climbing up there a bunch with Shayna, and I was like kind of tweaking, because I think I had been frothing so hard for months being injured, and then training and putting so much pressure on myself to like come back in a big way, and then fighting conditions. And it was a bit at the end of the season, so things were starting to get colder, which wasn't good for me with my skin. And anyways, so I think there was an emotional component there that made me slightly nervous about revisiting that. So I took a season at 5G completely off from that. I did another hard FA just next to it that I called Black Hole Sun. But then it felt like the right time coming back from Spain because I did a couple of really nice first ascents that I'm really proud of in the Vegas area before Spain. Then Spain is the best climbing trip I've had in my life. And everything just felt like it clicked really well. The last 2 weeks of that trip is like 2 weeks in my climbing that I'll always remember. 100%. I was with a really supportive group of people. Drew Mack and my really good friend Seth Lighton, and then Cameron was there doing a film, which is actually going to release somewhat soon.
Cameron Maurer.
Yeah, Bear Cam, and it's not your typical film. We can talk about that later. It's very unique and just going to be really cool. Cam's doing really cool shit now.
Yeah, leave it up to him. He is creative. Yeah, cool. I'm excited.
But so basically, I had this great experience of climbing there, and I felt a lot of confidence, and it just felt like coming home, it was like the perfect season as well for this route. And so it just felt like the right time to like, when I was up, feeling good about myself, feeling strong, it felt like a good time to go deep into something that I was a little bit nervous about. And so, I just came back and just went immediately into it and started hammering away at it. And I felt great in the bottom, and I started piecing together the top. And I had a narrow time window because I was going to France, going to Seiyus. I had about like 5 or 6 weeks or something before I left for Seiyus. And so that was giving me some stress, but I kept kind of telling myself that this was a big project for me. And if I wasn't able to finish, then, I could always come back. And I think I was able to keep it at that low level stress the whole time. Conditions worked out. I think all the fitness from Spain was perfect, and was able to finish it just like a week before I left. So very psyched. Yeah. Super psyched.
How did the bottom feel compared to 2 years before?
It felt better. Certainly at first, it felt better. In the first like several days, I was kind of like, shit, I'm going to get through the bottom soon, And then I didn't because it's hard. And, but I still had really good sensations about it. But then, as opposed to New World, basically you have worst resting opportunities you go right after the bottom, you go straight into like a long, probably V11, like vert boulder. So it's kind of very reminiscent of like the fins and really cool style, that really like imaginary, like sequence that took me days to figure out. And then you have a really good rest, and then it probably ends with a solid 14B or maybe C to go to the top from there.
Wow. So
it's different in terms of its difficulty. But yeah, it just ended up being a route with a lot of hard climbing on it, a lot of places to fall, a lot of sections that all made me nervous. Basically had 3 different hard sections that all felt pretty hard. And pretty soon I was like 3 hanging, like falling once in each section. But then it took me a while to get to like the 2 hanging situation and then the 1 hang, and then eventually to do it. I actually got through the bottom 2 or 3 times.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah. And still was falling in the upper part. So that's when it kind of like, because I just never know. I mean, grades are so hard, and I've been saying this for years, but I feel like the more hard climbing I do, the more confused I am about grades.
Yeah.
It's not helping me
Yeah.
be certain about things I do or things I repeat or FAs I do or anything. It's making me less sure.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there was a moment where I was like, well, shit, maybe this thing's 15A and the other one's easier. And then that one should come down. And then that other thing I did, I should downgrade. And then this thing I should up, you know, and just throwing a stick in the spokes and whatever. But when I got through the bottom feeling pretty good and still fell in the top part, it was clear to me that it was harder than New World. And I think the amount of effort I put into New World and how I felt when I did that, it just was like, I really think that's 15A. So then I think this should be B. And, you know, that's the best you can do, man. It's like,
Sure.
It's such a struggle. Like there's so often times where I feel like things are easy or hard or, you know, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So it's just do the best you can each time you climb a route, you know?
Yeah. And this is kind of a unique situation where you were going back and basically repeating New World in a sense by doing the bottom again. But like we never go back and repeat things that are hard for us that we've done, right? So I can totally relate to what you're saying. And, you know, my pyramid of boulders and routes is much smaller, but even so, I have gotten more confused over time, not less. And then like your body changes, your strengths change, like you're better at certain things, you're worse at other things. It's always in this weird flux. And like if I think about comparing things now to like routes I did at Smith Rock 3 years ago, it's like not even the same person.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
I've had an enormous transformation in the last 4 or 5 years. I was terrified of really steep climbing, like cave climbing, stuff like that, right? And because I was not very good at it. And I tried my best to stay away from it by climbing mostly like, you know, 2-dimensional stuff and face climbing. And I was really good at face climbing. I was excellent at that style. And then, you know, if you took me outside of the style, I would like suffer a bit. And there are some things I could pull off. But then over the last 4 years or so, it just has felt like all of the hardest routes for me, the things that I had ignored were just there still. And it was like, well, if I want to climb hard routes, and this is just a process that's happened to me like 4 or 5 times in my climbing, where it's like, I did all those things. If I want to keep doing hard routes, I have to do this now. Even this thing that I kind of hate, whether it was like in the beginning, I hated like chipped pockets or chipped routes. You know, I'm
just thinking of Podacy as you're talking.
Yeah, clearly, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember trying to like clear light and getting just smashed and being like, well, I hate chipped pockets. And then, you know, years later coming back and be like, okay, fine. And then eventually like kind of liking it and then loving it and then being like, oh, this is great. And then, you know, the same thing with cave climbing and with juggy, steep, thuggy type climbing. And yeah, now I'm at a point where like I just went to Seiyus for a month and I had a real eye-opening experience because that really always felt like my cup of tea. And for the first couple of weeks of being there, I was like, God, I'm not as good at this anymore. This is fucking hard.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
God, my forearms, I was like, it just felt like all of the stress was between my elbow and my wrist. And I was like, God, I think I've got my body a lot stronger climbing in Santolina and climbing in all these caves. But then I think my forearms and my fingers lost something, and so I was like, fuck, really felt pushed around there. And that was good eye-opening experience, and it's just funny, man. It's great. It's like climbing, as soon as you think you know something really well, then you get pulled away and then you lose touch with that. And then there's just always a way to be challenged. It's so sweet.
Yeah. My last couple of years, I've like really prioritized Waco and then climbing here in the park. Like I need to learn how to do thuggy steep shit, you know? And so, like similarly, it's transformed me as a climber. And I kind of thought in my head that I would be able to like put the Smith Rock and the Waco together and like do everything. And, but it's been way more of a trade, I mean, the experience and the skills and stuff are still there. I think they're just a little bit dusty, but yeah, it's a weird feeling. I feel the same way. Like I go back to crimpy pimpy stuff and it's rusty these days.
Totally.
Yeah.
And dude, you know what? It's there.
It's there.
If I've had it, if I've learned anything from the experience of constantly transforming back and forth, at least with me, and some people are incredible at transitioning, but for me, as long as I have time, it's going to come back. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I lost it altogether. I can still go to the fins and I can still, go to Smith or whatever and do okay if I have time. But what I've learned, the lesson I've learned is that I can't be in Santolina for a month and then show up at Smith for a long weekend and think I'm going to do my best. Like, that's just not going to happen. So, I have to be prepared to have a week of like incredibly humbling experience, have another week of like, okay, I'm almost there, and then probably be ready, That's
pretty good. 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, 2 or 3 weeks, it's something,
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's helpful to hear that.
The idea of like, you're going to climb in 10 sleep all summer and then, I don't know, show up at the Hurricane or something and smash. Like, for me, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I just need to anticipate that. Yeah.
So I want to talk about this transformation and especially the last 2 years, because when we talked 2 years ago, episode 14, that first one that we did, I think you'd climbed like 10, 15 A's at the time, a couple 15 B's. And in the last 2 years, you've like basically doubled that. You've done 4 15 B's now and almost twice as many 515s in general. You're 36. You're definitely your strongest ever. And it seems like you're still improving a lot, which is so sick.
I like to think that.
It's so inspiring,
thanks,
dude.
Thanks
yeah, I mean,
lot.
it's showing like in your trip to Spain. But yeah, it makes me curious. I have a few questions for you about that.
Yeah.
So like reflecting on that, on your progress over all these years, I'm curious what you would attribute the progress in the last couple of years to, and if it's just accumulation thing, like if it's all these years focusing on these different areas all coming together, or have you been changing things to your approach to climbing or training? Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed that free teaser. If you want to listen to the full version, it's 1 hour and 32 minutes and 46 seconds, and it's packed full of nuggets the whole time. I really enjoyed this conversation with Jonathan. And if you want to listen to the full thing, you're going to have to pay for it because I can't give everything away for free. I do have to make a living doing this somehow. And yeah, if you sign up for Patreon, you're getting ad-free episodes, you're getting follow-ups, you're getting a link that you can plug into Apple Podcasts to listen to the Patreon version of the show, so you can get all that content all in one place. But most importantly, what you are really doing is supporting the Nugget Climbing Podcast. I couldn't do it without you guys. It makes all the difference in the world to me, and I really appreciate your support. If you want to sign up, head over to patreon.com/thenuggetclimbing. There's a link right there in your podcast app. It just takes a few minutes to sign up. You'll get instant access to everything, and you can cancel at any time. No questions asked. All right. Thank you guys. I hope you have an amazing week. Best of luck with your projecting, and we will see you next time.
Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we we do it like we do it.